All right, what's up, guys? We are back with our second to last podcast episode of the year. Will, we've almost survived a whole year of podcasting every week for the year, which is crazy.
Yes, I know. It's kind of nuts. And honestly, these last few, I'm not going to lie, have been a little bit of a struggle. We've been so busy this end of the year with, you know, the last videos that you and I are trying to like push out, the traveling of the holidays, you know.
Yeah, you're traveling right now. You're back home.
I am. So if you guys notice, I apologize. I am in my friend's apartment business center, so this audio is probably going to be very echoey, but I have a bunch of family over at my parents' house where I'm staying, and there's just no space for me to kind of set up and talk, and they're probably up right now just talking gossip, you know, with whatever, catching up. You know, it's funny. So I think I already told you this, but I'll tell everybody on the pod. So usually when I go home, and I think most people can relate to this, at least most Asian people can relate to this, but you go home and then the first thing your parents or your aunties or uncles do is they give you critiques. They're like, dang, you got fat, or dang, what are you doing for work now, or when are you going to get married, or a bunch of this other stuff. And I'm like, oh gosh. So I walk in home and I'm ready for this. And I just got this haircut, and I didn't get one, but I got multiple compliments on my hair. And I was like, did I go to the wrong house?
You've entered a new frontier.
Yeah, I thought I was in like a different dimension, you know.
That's
like,
hilarious.
I have to check to make sure pickleball still exists in this universe. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, we're in the clear, guys. You know,
I should have said this before the pod when we were doing our checks, but since we're talking about the haircut and people are going to probably look at it in the video, is your camera in focus this time, unlike last week?
Yes. You know what? Let me just turn on the peaking just in case. I think it is.
Yes, last week, many of you pointed out that Will was not in focus, and I wish I could have done something about it, but this time we'll make sure he's in focus. As soon as he's back.
Okay. It's really hard to tell because the lighting in here is really tough, and my screen is like a little, like, this light is in my eye, so it's actually kind of hard for me to tell. And it's not like I can really grab manual focus right now to check because there's nothing for me to stand in.
Do you not just turn on the autofocus? It's an FX30.
It did. I turned on autofocus last time, and I don't know what happened, but like
it just got stuck or something.
It just got stuck or something. I don't know. This is older lens, but I think
when all of you say I'm the one that's 3.5 at best, just remember this guy was out of focus last week. I wasn't out of focus.
I apologize, everyone. It's okay.
All right. Anyways, so we're going to do this week is kind of a wrap up. I think it's something we're going to do probably every 6 months or so, because I think that kind of fits pretty well. But it's just like the state of pickleball paddles at this stage of the year. So this will be, you know, end of 2023 going into 2024. And then we just have like a few other random topics we want to talk about. My thoughts on the Ruby, the new Franklins, got some stuff in the kitchen that you guys might find interesting. But also, next week is probably going to be a more chill episode because it'll be right after Christmas. Will and I probably will have slowed down our work significantly. Probably won't be a lot of pickleball news. So if you have any questions for us that you want us to answer, leave them down in a comment below on YouTube, and we will try and answer them in the next pod. So, yeah, if you have any burning questions for either of us, let us know.
Let us know indeed.
All right, well, I got to talk about this because I was probably the only one in the pickleball universe that did not have his Ruby review done on time.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I mean, you've been pretty on point and very timely with everything else. So I'm going to let you live. I'm going to let it slide. It's okay. Thanks for, giving us time to, catch up or giving us a head start,
I think you're only letting it slide because it let your video get ahead of mine is the reason I'm hearing you letting it slide.
Exactly. That is the only reason. So thank you for that. It is much appreciated.
So I want to go back and forth on this because the only Ruby video that I saw before my review was yours, but I already pretty much knew your Ruby opinion from just talking or whatever. And I didn't want to watch any because I didn't want anything to influence. Like when I was hitting it, I wanted everything to like be my own opinion. Normally that's not an issue because I have it done on launch day, so it's not something I'm concerned about. But so once I like finished my script, recorded my A-roll, I was like, okay, I'm going to start watching some of these videos and just see where people differ. And it seemed like general consensus was pretty similar across the board. There was a couple things people were kind of different about, like pop and maybe power. Yeah, just like really small things, nothing major. But after I used it, I was a little surprised because there was a ton of hype, I feel like, around the Ruby. And after I hit it, here's the thing. It is an awesome paddle. It's very good. I could totally go to a tournament with it. In fact, it's still one that I'm considering using even over the double black diamond. Like it's in that tier of very good paddle, but it's not so much better than like the double black diamond. Like when I would hit them side by side, which I did a ton, I was kind of like,
it's the same.
You could hand me either of these and they're so similar that I was trying to pick up on the smallest things that I could even explain to people that are different. So I was surprised it got so much hype.
Yeah. For me, I think it plays, a little softer than the double black diamond. And I think, if anything, it's just the feel of it. It plays very similar. I feel like the performance and the spin and things that I get are very similar after hitting it multiple times. I think that it just feels better to me, like a little bit more plush feel, and where the double black diamond feels a little bit more like firm and crisp. And that plushness, I think, lets me and allows me to shape the ball more. But I think that it gets similar amounts of spin, and honestly, it could just be a placebo or something. You see the shiny new thing, right? You see the Kevlar face, and I'm a sucker for the looks of a paddle, and I think it looks amazing. So it's one of those things like, man, I'm playing with an amazing looking paddle, like, look good, feel good, play good type of thing, right? So that could be it. And I kind of agree with you there. I think most people's, at least the paddle reviewers' opinions are, very similar, I would say, with a little bit of just like minor differences here and there.
Yeah, it's not that I think it didn't really deserve hype. I just think it was some of the levels of hype that I felt like I was seeing was almost like Gearbox-ish levels, probably a hair below that. It wasn't people saying, wow, this is the best paddle ever. But the reaction was like, had I seen these beforehand and not hit the Ruby, I would have been like, wow, like
I'm missing
this
out.
Is a paddle you have to go and buy. And after I hit it, I was like,
yeah,
if you have a double black diamond, and you feel like it still gets good spin, I'm like, I don't think there's a reason to go get the Ruby.
I agree. Honestly, yeah, like if you are already happy with the double black diamond or something of a similar caliber, I don't think that it's worth going out to get. But it's still good. Like if you are, in the market for a new paddle and you like the double black diamond, you want something just a tad bit different, or you want to just try it out, like, yeah, no, go for it. I think it's definitely cool looking, different. It performs really well, and I think it just looks really good. It's definitely going to turn heads. Like once you bring it, and while it's new and fresh, it's like, once you go in the court, like, oh dang, is that the Ruby? Like, it's definitely a conversation starter,
Yeah. I definitely think, especially in a sea of paddles that largely look the same, black face, black edge guard, maybe occasionally a colored edge guard, it definitely stands out. Like it's for sure one of the better looking paddles of this year. Like they definitely crushed the design of it.
Hands down. And it just kind of goes to show you that design matters. I think a lot of people out there will purchase paddles based on looks alone. And I'd imagine that if you had a kind of like a starter paddle and then you're playing a lot and you're ready to upgrade to a more performance-based paddle, how are you going to choose? Like I'm just saying, like if you're kind of like the average person who's just, becoming a higher level player and you don't quite know paddles as much and you hear good things about the Ruby, and because it's so striking and or you heard that it's good, like why wouldn't you pick it just because it looks good? It kind of just like the decision fatigue is not there. You can just kind of go to it because it looks good. And you and I both know that a lot of new people into the game, when they purchase like a starter paddle that's like, between $50 and maybe like $100, like the looks matter. They purchase things like based on the graphics and stuff because they just want to go out there and have fun,
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I don't know. Ruby, solid paddle, but it definitely was not a blow away. Again, I'm still considering using it. I think it's good enough for that. It was just kind of a little surprise on the hype train behind it.
Yeah,
a tiny
not
bit, just because it's not
with Kevlar. I saw on your video, you're like, yeah, Kevlar. Is it really the new wave? I don't know.
I'm not super sold yet. I just don't think it's immediately that much better. I mean, it may have some things that are a little bit more appealing, but it's just not a giant leap in technology. So like, I'm fine with people doing it, but I know what it's going to become now is like, we're going to see this wave of companies going, oh, Kevlar, and like all the buzzwords that all these other companies are going to make up about like, here's why Kevlar is so much better than carbon fiber. And like, I swear, dude, if I see one more person say, yeah, but Kevlar can stop a bullet, carbon fiber doesn't. And I'm like, we're not stopping bullets with pickleball pad. Like, it's like 2 layers of Kevlar. This is not going to stop a single bullet. Like,
I mean, I don't know.
I'm like, who cares if it can stop a bullet?
With the new Gearbox, and I feel like sometimes I'm trying to dodge bullets. I'm not going to lie to you. So I don't know. I might have to switch to the Kevlar face just to make sure, I have a better chance. That's all I'm saying.
All right. That's pretty good. I'll give you that one. That's kind of funny. That's pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty
all right.
good.
Well, moving on, we have the new Franklins, right? The Franklins have a swing weight of what? Tell me.
They have a swing weight, Will, of 134.
Dang, the new ones? So the new Franklin Tours?
Yes.
Wait, are they 16 millimeter?
They have 4 different versions. They have 2 shapes, standard, elongated, and then 16 and 14 of each. The 16 millimeter elongated was 134 swing weight, and the average weight is like 8.5 to 8.8.
Wow, that's very high for a 16 millimeter paddle. I mean, we've seen paddles with higher swing weights before, but those are like the Warrior or the Pro Drive Carbon from Pro Drive, but those are like 19 millimeter cores with like 3 cores in them, so those make sense to have that high swing weight. And wow, that's wow.
I mean, I think that's gonna be. I will be very curious to see. I probably won't get to hit these until after my break. Like, I'm not gonna have time to hit them before the end of the year, I don't think. But I have a couple interesting thoughts. Well, a lot of interesting thoughts. First of all, Franklin actually advertises swing weight and twist weights on their website now.
Oh,
like, it
great.
Says,
thank you, Franklin.
And I think, yes, honestly, as much as I have made fun of Franklin, I give you guys massive props for this, because they are the first major company or major player that I'm aware of that has started using swing weight. We've seen some of the smaller companies like Volair, 6-0. I don't even know if you can really call 6-0 a small company anymore, but Thrive. Like, you're seeing companies adopt it, but no one major's done it. So awesome to see them using swing weight and twist weight, and bonus props for using the standard that all the reviewers are using, unlike Pickleball Central, who has been using, the 10 centimeter. So it's just like, I'm a huge fan. That is fantastic. Yeah. But that is a giant swing weight that I think a lot of people are going to struggle to swing.
And for those of you listening out there, swing weight, just in case you don't know, swing weight is just kind of how much force is kind of required to swing a paddle. So it's like how much it feels, how heavy it actually feels as you're moving it through the air. Basically a 120, I would say, what would you say, a 124 to 130 something, maybe 125 swing weight to 134 or higher is considered fairly high swing weight. And I think low is, what would you say, anywhere 100 to 110. And then between the 110 to 120 is kind of the average that you see. Like, Chris, your favorite, the double black diamond comes at what, 116? 114? Okay, so that gives you guys an idea. Me, I played with some more elongated paddles like the Filth, the Ronbis Pulsar, and those come in around, 118 to 120. So that's the swing weight that I like. So 134 or 125 and higher is kind of high.
I think that's actually the highest paddle I have tested stock. I think the Pro Drive might have been just over 130, but 134, you are talking the highest percentile for swing weight. It is on an island of its own. I think a lot of people, if anyone's even a little bit sensitive to weight or swing weight, 120 you're going to start being like, ooh, it's a little slow. 125, you're like, okay. Like, you know, either you need to be pretty strong or used to tennis. Yeah. But 134, I'm like, dude, you're carrying a dumbbell. Like, and you know what's even crazier? JW puts lead at the head of his paddle on the top corners.
JW is a being from another planet.
Dude, this guy's got to have forearms that are like, I just can't even imagine.
You've seen it, right? Have you seen his forearms? The man is just...
Dude, with how fast his hands are, I don't even know. It's like the guy is playing with training weights.
Yeah, no, definitely. Oh, also, speaking of other people that are playing, have you seen the clip of, was it Maria Sharapova? She was playing with the new Franklin, right?
No, I didn't see that.
Really? I'm pretty sure it was her. I saw a clip and I was like, I think that's Maria Sharapova. I think she's playing with the Franklin paddle. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if she's stepping into the game or she's just but it looked like a legit clip. It wasn't like just her playing casually or wreck. It like,
sure.
It almost looked like a sizzle reel or like a commercial even for Franklin. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. So before we move on, the other ones, the Tempo is the standard one and the Dynasty is the elongated. The other swing weights, they actually forgot to send me the 14 millimeter Tempo, so I couldn't get the swing weight on that myself. But the other ones aren't too ridiculous. It was like 120 for the Dynasty 14, and then like in the 116 to 17 for the Tempo 16, I think. So I'm guessing the 14 will be even a little less. So those ones aren't nearly as crazy, but if you are considering that 16 millimeter, just know that you are probably going to be holding Thor's hammer when you use that paddle.
So, I mean, on your first hit, were they good? Like, or were they bad? Like, how did you
No, I haven't. I literally haven't gotten to hit it. I got them.
The weights.
Yeah, I got them 2 days ago and then like put them in my database, and now they'll sit in a pile until I can hit them.
Okay. All right. So you haven't even, did you spin test them or no?
No, literally nothing. Like, I took them out of the box, put them in the machines, and then put them on the floor.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But I'm curious to hit them. Curious to see if, you know, it seems like it's just a thermoform paddle with higher weight. But, you know, it's interesting. There are companies, I mean, kind of like the 6.0, the Jamais Pro weighted edition. I'm like, okay, 8.3 ounces. Like, there's plenty of paddles that hit 8.3. I'm like, Franklin really went for the pro weighted model at 8.5, 8.8. Like, that's heavy. So,
well, hopefully they're
actually,
good.
last thing.
Yeah.
They're, I don't know if you saw this, but they did a little commercial on the launch. I was like, you know what, Franklin? You actually made a good commercial. The old ones were a little bit cringy. This new one I actually thought was good.
Okay.
I was impressed.
I need to go check it out. Dang. All right. Well, there you have it, Chris. You know, it sounds like you want Franklin to succeed, and honestly, they need a win right now. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I'm still skeptical that this one's going to be a big success, but they got the building blocks. The building blocks are in the right place. They might just need a couple more pieces.
Okay.
Yes. All right, let's get into the state of pickleball paddles 2023. Let's kind of just recap what happened this year.
Yeah. So first thing that happened this year, huge thing, thermoforming or unibody construction. That was huge. I think that was the huge step forward in paddles to make them, well, initially, as we thought, more durable, definitely more sturdy or less prone to snapping, because some of the higher end paddles like the Yola Hyperion from the end of the previous year, they had problems in the handles, like, you know, snapping from the paddle face. But I thought thermoforming was great. And when you and I first started hitting them, we were like, whoa, like, it was miles better than the Gen 1 cold press sandwich paddles that we had. Just way better in terms of just feel, spin, power, just across the board. But that came with a problem. You want to tell what that problem was? The biggest problem that we've had?
Good old core crushing, or what everyone thought was delamination for the long time, which, I mean, people still use that word, but core crushing is definitely the proper word we should be using. But dude, it was bad. It was really bad.
Yeah, bad, real bad. Michael Jackson.
Like,
so bad.
Here's the thing. It's so interesting thinking back to that. So, okay, obviously had the carbons. Those were the first thermoformed paddle I reviewed last year. They did great. Loved them. I used it for a little bit. Then after that, I got the Legacy. And I remember reviewing that, and that was the most confusing review I had ever done for myself, because the whole time I'm hitting it, I get it, I'm like, okay, this is a great paddle. The more I use it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it is a literal laser beam. And I was getting to the point where I couldn't drop with it, I couldn't dink with it. And I was like, I've never hit a paddle so powerful. And I remember talking in my Discord, and everyone's like, like, Chris, it's really not that hard to control. Like, it's very easy. Like, I don't know what the problem is. And I'm sitting over here like, I promise you I've never hit a paddle that's this hard to control. And then I'd give it to other people, and I'm like, I've never seen someone hit a drive this hard. And, like, so eventually, you know, reviewed the paddle, talked about, like, okay, it's got this insane power. Like, I went back and watched my old review, and I was like, wow, now that I have more knowledge, like future me has more information, I'm like, wow, it's so obvious that I am just describing core crushing.
Yeah. And honestly, like, my paddle eventually core crushed as well, but it took mine a little bit longer. I think yours probably just crushed sooner, but when you told me, it's like, yeah, it's hitting like an EVA foam paddle, I'm like, okay, that's a bit much. Like, mine's hitting hard, but I don't know if it's hitting that levels of hard. And then eventually mine got to that level, and I'm like, okay, Chris was not crazy. This is what he's talking about. And
that conversation, I specifically remember exactly where I was when I texted you. I was at Mega Pickle and Pong, and I was literally hitting the Vice and the Legacy back to back, and people were like, dude, you are hitting the ball harder with the Legacy. And I texted you, and I was like, dude, do you think your Legacy hits as hard as a Vice? And you were like, no, you're crazy. Like, there's no way. And I was just sitting there like, I never hit a paddle that so many people like disagreed with me, at least like in my peer groups. I was like, what is wrong with me? Like,
am I a horrible paddle reviewer?
Yeah. No,
or am
literally.
I just as bad at the game? I was like, nah.
All these things are going through my head. I was like, what is going on? So like, obviously, you know, probably within, I would say, a month after that is when it was like more established what core crushing was. There was a problem, the crackling. You could tell they were getting more powerful, and it was like, oh, okay, I wasn't crazy. Like, there actually was something going on. Yeah. But yeah, it
wasn't until other companies and other, you know, engineers from other companies were taking apart paddles and then looking at their own paddles and other people's paddles and then relaying information to us, because we had to really kind of dig in and use our connections and our resources to kind of figure out what the issue was. And even then it was confusing. It was difficult because actually nobody really knew, and they thought it was multiple things, and they tried, you know, multiple solutions, but we still had the problem. So it took a while. But yeah, anyways, sorry I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, you're good. I was just going to say, like, it was very interesting too. Like, everyone, or a lot of the companies thought it was like a glue issue, like an actual delamination of the face layers separating. You know, people eventually figured out it was core crushing. But it's crazy to think that this issue has plagued us for basically a year straight. Like, it has significantly reduced. I would say once we crossed maybe July, the amount of paddles that were getting core crushed across the board were significantly lower. I know that some companies, you know, there was like turning the heat down. They're using new cores. 6-0 and Ronbus seem to be the biggest proponent of using different cores that have helped mitigate that a little bit. It's still not completely gone. I mean, carbons are still just core crushing left and right. I don't know if
the carbons are still happening. You still hear it or like see it?
Oh yeah, all the time. Like by far, it is the one I hear the most about.
Oh wow, Garrett, fix it.
But honestly, at this point, it's not even gonna matter. When Carbon Concepts finally drops, no one's gonna care about the 1X anymore. Maybe not that extreme, but like, yeah, I mean, it'll be.
No, I think you're right.
Probably headed in that direction.
Yeah, everybody's kind of using better cores. Things are getting like much better, improving, and then I mean, we're just gonna have new core. I just feel like we're gonna have new cores. Do you think PPP polypropylene is still gonna be? I mean, it's probably still gonna be the big player, but do you think we'll see more materials or different materials in 2023? I just feel like the companies have like stuff like hidden up their sleeve that they haven't even told us about, that they're just gonna like lay on us like in the middle of the year, and we're just not gonna be ready for it.
Will, if you read the little doc I prepped, we were gonna get to that a little few bullet points down.
Oh. Well, we can always skip around.
All right, we'll skip around a little bit. We'll skip around to this. I definitely think we're gonna see some different core materials next year. I mean, I already know some stuff that people are working on. Some we already know is good. I still think, obviously hasn't been put through the ringer yet to know durability and other things, but we'll see a few different cores next year. I don't know that. I think what's going to happen is we will see a type of core, and if it continues to do well, which I think it will, I think we're going to see even more of those. So we'll have to kind of wait and see, but I don't think it's going to be like, oh man, there's like 5 different cores or something like that. I mean, yeah, there's, the polypropylene, the Kevlar cores, which are very, very meh. People got to stop doing that. PMI foam, do not use that. That's on par, if not worse than Kevlar. Adidas was the only one that used that. You guys got to ditch that. I know, I'm sure it was for some durability stuff, but like the PMI foam is not it. It's not it. It's not good. So don't use that core.
All right. You heard it here first, guys.
It's interesting, though, something that has been interesting, and it's definitely part of the core crushing because people didn't quite know what it was, and, some paddles they kind of come core crushed out of the box is essentially how it works, and it gets worse over time. But as this issue has gotten fixed, paddles have, in my opinion, have definitely gotten less powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're probably right. And even with them using more glue in the composite and in the process, it mutes the paddle a little bit more. So yeah, they're not as powerful, or they're not as what's the word I'm looking for? They just don't ricochet out the paddles like they did earlier in the beginning of the year. At least that's my guess is as well, and my experience from playing with people. But I mean, there's some people out there that are still hitting, super hard. They're still.
They're definitely still harder than like a Gen 1 raw carbon fiber for sure. They're not like back down to that level, but compared to what it was when we first started hitting them, I mean, the only one that I know of that still hits really hard is the carbon, and that's because that one still seems to break a lot. Dang. Like that's the only one that I'll pick it up and I'll go like, oh yeah, this is like about how I remember it.
Right. Do you think people are just getting used to the power now, or do you think that I don't know, people still complain about the power of some of these paddles?
I think people have definitely gotten used to it more. So, I remember some of the first thermoform paddles like people would play against me with, and I was like, holy crap, like this is insane how fast this ball is coming. I think across the board, people have just gotten better at the game. Like, you had to adapt, right? Like every company has a thermoform paddle now, so if you didn't get used to it, you were probably just hosed.
Yeah, left in the dust.
Yeah. So, yes, thermoforming, core crushing, that was a huge issue this year. But one thing I didn't see a lot of issues with was edge guard durability. For the most part, glue, they used to come undone, and that still happens.
Yeah.
But the amount it happens now is so much less than the year prior, in my opinion. Like, it was so common that I'd show up somewhere and like, this guy's edge guard's loose, this guy had to glue it, like this guy warrantied it. Of
course, coming out in the corners and whatnot.
Yeah.
Did you see any edge guard problems this year from any brand at all?
The only one that I consistently saw it for was the 006. And it wasn't like, oh man, it was just every single one of them. But that one happened quite a bit more. And actually, it was kind of interesting. I didn't get to watch the full video. I kind of skipped around. But Davis Pickleball, he did like a teardown video, and he was taking off the edge guards, and some of the thermoformed ones were like quite hard to get that edge guard off. 006, that thing just like peeled right off immediately. So I was like, oh, maybe there actually is something to that, because if you just look at the amount of effort he had to put in, it was a lot more on the other ones compared to the 006.
Okay. Well, I mean, other than that, though, I think paddles have overall just gotten better, especially near the end of the year. We have, better handles now. I think most of them are better constructed, better edge guards, more power, and
like no exposed polymer, which is great.
Exposed polymer. I don't know. You still might find them here or there, but if you do, in 2024, Chris, Dang, you really got to lay it on them. Okay.
Here's the thing. The only ones that pretty much get a pass now, because the only paddles that I have seen recently that have exposed polymer are all the ones that they're like really cheap paddles. They're like a $70 raw carbon fiber paddle. And while I am still annoyed and think that should be fixed, I am like, okay, you're literally $70. Like, my expectation's just not that high. So like I could get over that for $70 if it means the price is going to be lower, even though I still think it's probably fixable. I think the only one, if I'm looking at my room, the only one that I recall still having exposed polymer and being an expensive paddle it was two. It was the Diadem Edge 18K. I don't know what Diadem's doing. They should be big enough to figure this out. And then the other one was Vulcan with their like new 700 series. Both of those had exposed polymer.
Wait, what about the STK?
STK was last year.
Oh, okay. I always forget.
Yeah.
I always think
yeah, I know. It kind of feels like it bled into this year for some reason.
Yeah. Well, yeah, most paddles have gotten better.
Oh, sorry. One other one. Engage. I don't know how I forgot Engage.
Oh, really? Like the Pursuit Pro?
Yeah, the Pursuit Pro. It's still exposed.
What?
I know. I'm like, bro, 260. Come on, fix it.
Jeez. Okay. Well, for the most part, paddles have gotten better, but also they've gotten cheaper. So there's been a few price drops this year. Yeah, you want to go over some of the first ones you got listed right here?
Yeah, so kind of the leader in the big price drop revolution was probably Vatic. I mean, once they released the $99 Prism, that was a pretty big shockwave across the industry. And I think because of Vatic, it sparked a lot of people to do the same thing. It's actually really funny. I see a lot of pitches online, or I get messages that's like, hey, we got tired of the really expensive paddles in pickleball, so we made the best possible paddle you can make, and we're selling it for only $100. And it always makes me chuckle when I see these now, because I'm like, okay, yes, this used to be a really interesting value proposition. Like when Vatic did it, it was like, whoa, like no one was doing this. $100 paddles were crap. Now I'm like, okay, dude, like you and like 15 other companies, like you're going to have to be a little bit more special than just like, I have $100 paddle that's Gen 2 thermoformed or Gen 1. Like,
right.
It's funny.
Give something else into the mix, whether with branding, marketing, or even if you need to throw in a gimmick in there. Who knows?
And with Vatic, I think what they did really well, they did, like a Gen 1.5, like has edge foam, no exposed polymer. With a code, it's $90. Like, they absolutely crushed it. So even companies that are selling just a basic Gen 1 raw carbon fiber, like think the X-Pac, when that was $100, I'm like, I don't really know why you would buy that unless the shape is just really appealing, because you've got this paddle that is built extremely well. It's very good. It's a reputable brand. You can get it for $90. Like, I don't know. It's not enough to just be like, hey, we have a $100 pickleball paddle. Like, you have Vatic. And actually, someone linked this in my Discord. I don't know how you say it. It's like Aihoye Pro. It's AIHOYE Pro. It is a 2-set. It's probably direct from a pickleball manufacturer, I'm sure. But it basically like the X-Pac. But it's 2 Gen 1 raw carbon fiber paddles for like $70.
What? That's crazy.
That's $35 a pop. That's crazy. I haven't hit them. I don't know if they're good, but for that price, I'm like, shoot, I'm going to have to pick that up and see if they're any good, because that's insanely cheap.
Yeah, that's nuts. I haven't heard of that one, so.
Yeah, I literally only found out about it like probably in the last 24 hours. But then after that, you have Neonic, you have Spartus, you have Friday Pickleball, which those paddles, I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty impressed by. I haven't talked about those before, but they're running a code for the holiday where you can get 2 of them for $100. They're thermoformed. They look good. Now, granted, they're paint grit, so I anticipate that the grit's not going to last very long. But I'm also like, dude, for $50 a paddle and how good the paddle plays, I'm like, it almost doesn't even matter. Like, people used to buy the Franklin Signature and loved it. I'm like, this is that paddle, but better,
at a cheaper
and
price.
It's cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Good
Friday
paddles are
crushes
getting
it.
Cheap paddles are getting good, dude.
It's insane.
It's a done
insane. So yeah, I don't know. A cheap paddle, you're gonna have to do more to separate yourself than just be cheap at this point. There's also like PhD professor, and to be honest, I'm probably forgetting about a dozen other ones.
Can I tell you, each time I see the PhD professor, it looks like an O to me. So all I'm thinking is pho, like the Vietnamese noodle soup, and that's like all I can see, and I can't unsee it now. And that's all I think of, a bowl of noodles each time I see that paddle face. I'm like, all right, I'm about to go get some pho, guys. See you on the pickleball
I can't
courts
find.
later.
I was looking in my office to try and find it, but I think I've had the same thought as you. Like, I don't think I ever thought about it that hard, but as soon as you said that, I was like, wait, is that why that logo looks kind of weird?
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's why it looks weird. They need to do something with that D because it looks too much like an O, or because it's like, I think the D is like kind of cut off or rounded from the paddle edge, like corners. It looks like an O. So like, yeah, the pho paddle.
Really
that's what
funny.
I call it.
Huh? Yeah, I can't find it in my office, but that's kind of funny to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think this year definitely sparked a revolution of everyone making cheaper paddles, which is great for the consumer. If you want to buy some of the higher end ones, like that's fine, but you have plenty of amazing options in the cheaper price point. And I think what's been also great is in some ways it forces the really big guys to differentiate their products more, whether that's through better quality control or things that no one else can do. For example, the Gearbox. I'm like, okay, you guys are the only one doing this and probably able to do it right now. So $275 might be justifiable. And had the Gearbox Pro managed to keep the old Gearbox quality control, which I can absolutely say at this point they have managed to not keep that quality control. I think this is by far the most breakable Gearbox that has ever existed. If they had managed to keep the old Gearbox quality control, that $275 price tag is, while still very expensive, it's a lot more justifiable. But they didn't manage to keep that, so it's kind of iffy. But it's still, the performance is elite.
Elite. L33T.
Yeah.
Elite.
Yes, elite. So, yes, that's the cheap paddles. I guess the other like few things that I thought were kind of interesting were this year it was really hard to make a bad paddle. Like I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I've been working on my paddle awards video and I had to figure out my flop of the year, or like top 3 flops of the year. I could literally only think of 3. Like I couldn't think of anything that flopped harder than the 3 I thought of.
I mean, it's pretty. I feel like. I mean, I know 2 of them. Probably, it's pretty.
Don't
obvious.
say them. Don't say them. Don't give them spoilers.
All right, I won't give a spoiler. We're just patiently waiting for this video to come
Here,
out.
we'll do this. Leave a comment down below and see if you can guess all 3 of them and the order of the 3 paddles.
Ooh, that'll be good.
From biggest flop to the least flop. I'll be curious if anyone manages to nail this.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, dude, how many like there was just nothing that was really that bad.
Yeah, there was something for everybody. And even if I didn't like a paddle that came to my door that I played with, I could objectively see somebody else liking it. Like, this could be good for someone else or for the right person, because because they were all so good. And like, there's a lot of similar, specs across paddles. I feel like if you had, some ingredients, like you made a good paddle, raw carbon fiber, thermoformed, you didn't have exposed polymer, swing weight, twist weight was like, around this kind of weight range. Like, It was really hard to make bad paddles.
Yeah, for sure. So that was good to see. The other thing was, obviously, with the cheaper brands, you saw a significant influx of just like cheap Alibaba catalog. Okay, cheap is the wrong word. The paddle still performed fine, but there were so many brands, dude, that popped up this year that I was like, they'll email me and be like, yeah, we're like leading innovation. We like worked on all these really cool things. And then I have literally seen their paddle before they ever even emailed me in an Alibaba catalog or in like a random Chinese ad. It's always the ones with like a weird hole. Throat hole or the side bends. Like, it's always one of those. Like, it just makes me laugh because I'm like, I'm not going to say they lied to me in their email. That's too harsh of language. But I'm like, you definitely like tried to fluff this up. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, you did what a lot of these guys did. They talked to China and said, hey, like, Like, what if we put a hole right here?
Mm-hmm. Do you think that whole thing is, or those cutouts will be still big in 2024?
Man, it's hard to say. They definitely more of them popped up this year. But I think what is interesting is when it happened on like the 002, it was obviously very different. It was quite interesting. But I don't think the holes ever really became what people thought it would. I still think it gives the paddle a feel that other paddles don't have. Mm-hmm. Kind of like when I hit the Alchemy, I feel like that's different. But I don't know that it's different in a way that's like drastically better. It's almost like Kevlar, where you're just like, yeah, it's different, but like, it's not better.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I don't know. I just don't want to see these crazy like cutouts. Like, ones where I see that are like, you see the smiley face and there's like also a circle cutout right above it. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, does it really do anything aside from aesthetics? But even then, I was like, it doesn't look.
No,
great.
It doesn't even look better.
It doesn't even look better.
I think some of these newer companies will like gravitate towards these like weird hold ones because I think it does stand out. But I'm like, oh gosh, like there's one specific version that I've just seen from several, like all over the place now, where it's either the 4 side vents plus the hole at the bottom, and I'm like, yeah, okay, like I question whether this thing's even good or not. But I've seen it in like 5 or 6 different places now. Like I'll show up at a local court and like there's a guy that's like, oh yeah, like I kind of sell paddles locally, and I'm like, oh hey, I've seen that paddle in the catalog. So yeah, throat holes were kind of a thing this year, but it was also kind of just
Yeah, meh. All right.
Yeah.
Anyways,
all right, moving on.
The Gearbox, did it break the game? Did you think it came out kind of later in the year, but I've seen it out in the wild. We've faced against it in tournaments. Has it broken the game yet? Are people still complaining about it, or has the complaints died down, or have they shot up in number? I mean,
definitely still being complained about, in my opinion. Maybe not as vocally by the pros, but I think I think it's not being complained about much by the pros because they're just not having to see it very often. There's not very many Gearbox pros, so it's also the end of the year. Like things are did have wound down. So I think that's why you're not seeing as many pro complaints, but amateurs are definitely still pretty annoyed at the paddle. I feel like some people kind of view it as like a cheater paddle, and they're like blaming the player, and I'm like, dude, like it's an approved paddle. Like it is legal as of now. If it ever changes, great. But like right now, they can use it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely broke the game a little bit. Like Gearbox went from you never see these things to that paddle is everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I played last night at my old stomping grounds over at Pickleballers USA. Shout outs to Danny, Mr. Thunder Thighs PB, for setting me up, getting me to play. But I saw a couple of them there, and surprisingly enough, everybody that I saw that had it had the shorter version, the Fusion Power. People just tell me they like that one better. They all think that the elongated power is just a little too hot, and the people who did have elongated ones that I saw, they have the control version. So
interesting.
Yeah, but I saw a lot of them, and that thing still hits freaking hard and fast. I'm like, dang, I have to be like on my A game to, block some of these shots back.
I really need to get. I might try and squeeze this as one extra video because I don't think it would take me too much longer. And I haven't finished my test, but I am now done enough to fairly confidently say that I think this is what's happening with the Gearbox. But after the review came out, there was a lot of consumers getting it that were like, mine doesn't hit that hard. Like, these guys are lying. And I still see, like, posts pop up like that. And I'm like, okay, yes, just use it more, and it's going to break in, and it's going to change. Because I have now hit, like, 15 different Gearboxes from California, from Minnesota, from in Texas. Like, I've hit a bunch of these. And the more they get used, the more they loosen up, and they become just like what the one I'm hitting was. I even started breaking in a second one. I have 2 brand new ones. It's breaking in one of them. And the more I used it, the more it has loosened up. And it is like, it's hitting very hard now. It might not be quite at the level of my first one yet, but it has like, I don't know how many hours of play, but nowhere near as many hours. So this is a video I'm going to make at some point talking about this, but just use it a bunch. It breaks in, it changes. Whether that is intentional or not, we don't know. Gearbox claims it will loosen up within like 5 hours of play, but I think you hit like, I'm making up a number here. This is just a ballpark. You hit like 30 hours and it really loosens up. Like it starts sounding more hollow. It hits really hard. Like, I don't know. I'm curious to see what they do with this paddle.
Yeah. I mean, some people still ask me, like, do you think it's going to get banned? They come up to me all the time. They're asking me about it. Which one would you pick? Is it worth it? Is it going to get banned? And I tell people, I'm like, I don't think it's going to get banned, but it is as good as everybody says, or it is as like different or crazy as everybody is saying. I should have brought some because people were asking me about it. I brought a bunch of paddles like over, and I went to go play at this other like outdoor local court area, and I just had a box of paddles, and like I brought them to the courts, and everybody was just demoing everything. I was like, yeah, go for it. He's like, do you have the Gearbox?
Mr. Santa over here.
Yeah, exactly. Except, I was like, you can't keep it though.
Yeah. A couple more things on the Gearbox that I want to talk about is, well, first on the note of it getting banned, because this is something that a lot of people talk about, is my opinion, and this is purely my own thoughts, speculation. I don't have any actual info on this, but I just don't know how they could ban it. It passed their tests. I even sent my Gearbox, my broken in one. I got it tested at the lab that paddles get certified at, and it still passed the deflection test. So it doesn't fail as it breaks in, which people were worried about. So at that point, okay, what are you going to ban it for? Hey, we just think it hits too hard. Like USAP would have probably a lawsuit on their hands after they've been certified, shipped a ton of paddles, and then said, hey, we're going to ban it. The carbon situation, they went out of spec and they were able to ban it. These, while they're still hitting way harder than everything else, they're still staying in spec. Even if it's a workaround or however the heck they're doing it, it's still staying in spec. And then PPA, let's say they wanted to ban it. Maybe they ban it for the pros. Okay, you now impacted 0.0001% of pickleball. It doesn't even matter. They're not going to ban it at the amateur level. And even if they banned it at any of those levels of the PPA, they would still have a problem. Gearbox is a sponsor of them. Like, are you going to shoot the hand that feeds you money?
That's true. Do you think that could have been a strategic ploy by Gearbox? Like, hey, I'm going to sponsor, the PPA events or whatever. And now, then I'm going to get this paddle approved. And now, like, you don't mess with me. Don't be banning my paddle. Don't be banning my shit because I'm paying you.
That would have been a very long play because they've been sponsoring the PPA for a hot minute now. But I don't know. You never know in pickleball, I guess. But I would put that one on the more of the tinfoil hat side of things. But Will's putting on the tinfoil hat. And then the last thing I wanted to say about the Gearbox, because I was talking about it breaking later. I've been compiling. Trying to compile screenshots, posts, videos of people mentioning their Gearbox having issues. Dude, I don't think I've seen any other paddle this year have more damage issues or QC complaints
than this
Gearbox. My friend Rick, he got his, and he used it for like 2 play sessions. We were at League last Wednesday, and him and another guy went to hit kind of like a probably shoulder high-ish ball around there. They both swung, they clunk paddles, and it literally like blew out the side of his Gearbox. Like there's a huge crack. The face got raised up, kind of like the foam inside like expanded more. Yeah. And I've seen that from several people in my Discord. I've seen cracked faces on Facebook. Obviously the QC issues we've talked about with like the dimples and like other random things on the paddle, but this paddle's like breaking left and right, man. Like it's crazy.
Dang, come on, Gearbox, making us look bad.
It's not a great look for Gearbox. So I'm hoping they'll figure something out. But what's kind of annoying is they haven't really made any statement about like, hey, yeah, we're aware these kind of break. It's kind of just been swept under the rug, and I feel like they're hoping it goes away or becomes less. But like, dude, literally looking at my office, some of the biggest paddles of the year, I can't find any that have broken in as much volume as I've seen this Gearbox break. And at $275, that's just not okay.
Yeah. Do you think it might be like recency bias though, because the Gearbox is, I don't know, fairly new, I would say? Like, I don't know. What about some older paddles that we saw a lot of breaking in the beginning of the year? Like, let's say with the core crushing, like Carbon or Legacy.
If you want to go with the core crushing, I definitely think that's like a valid point. I think the biggest difference as of the moment is that companies actively tried to fix that. Granted, it took them a really long time, and they would also warranty it. So I do think that was kind of like a bonus. If you crack your face from like clanking paddles, I don't think Gearbox is going to warranty that.
Yeah.
Like, but I think that's a good point. Like, you know, should all the thermoforming companies have gotten a big pass on like QC when like it was a really big problem? So that is a good point. I'm kind of glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, other than that, I mean, the industry is moving forward. And I mean, we did mention this before, but, you know, a lot of these companies are now starting to use swing weight and twist weight more, and even, you know, promoting it or sharing it, their numbers on their websites and on their, you know, sales pages, which is great because I think as the consumer becomes more knowledgeable, you know, as pickleball progresses, you become better and your equipment matters more because you're trying to eke out every bit of performance wherever you can. You know, you need to kind of know these things so you know which paddles that are right for you. And then also this kind of, you know, keeps these paddle companies more honest and make sure that they push out good products, right?
Yeah.
So
that definitely, I think, keeps them honest and also gives them kind of a benchmark of like, honestly, I think it's equally as helpful for the companies producing it to be aware of these numbers because you know the ranges that people like, you know what you can do to differentiate yourself. So I think it's very good. Like Franklin's using it, Valaire's using it, 6-0, Thrive. And I think there's a few other, you know, smaller companies that have adopted the numbers, which is great to see. And like Pickleball Central, they kind of half adopted it. They're using a slightly different standard. I'm glad to see them adopt it and hopefully help move the industry forward. But I do think it's only going to cause more confusion. For example, like look at this. Franklin, major retailer, they put 134. They're all using the same measurement that the reviewers are using. And then I was looking at the Pickleball Central website and I noticed they didn't list what their version of the swing weight is on it. Cause like they would conflict. They would Pickleball Central's number. Yes. I really hope they switch because I just think it's going to cause problems. Like imagine Pickleball Central's like, hey, the new Franklin, it has a swing weight of 91. And then Franklin's like, it's 134. So you're like, wait, what those would literally using? Exactly. So I hold out hope that they'll switch, but I'm still happy that they have even made effort to move in the proper direction because I think educates the consumer better and it's just better for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, no. It's like going, you know, using the metric system or like, you know, the American system or using, you know, Fahrenheit, Celsius. At least you kind of have an idea of how cold or hot it is. You might not know exactly, but you kind of have an idea. So it's something. I get it, you know.
It's kind of like that. And for any of the companies listening to this right now, if you want to start doing this, which all of you absolutely should start dabbling in it. There's no excuse not to. You can literally buy the Graffiti SW1. That is what all of the YouTubers use. It's BRIFFIDI SW1. And then you buy the 5 centimeter pickleball adapter, and it's like $300 total. If you are a paddle company, this is a cheap write-off. It'll be one of the cheapest things you can buy. People want to see these numbers. Like, go buy one.
Boom. Business consulting advice to all you pickleball paddle companies out there. Chris and I will send you an invoice. Thank you.
I won't even send him an invoice for this. I just want the industry to move forward on this one.
Wow. You are such a generous man.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about what's coming. We hinted at this earlier, but I think here are the two things that I really think are going to be big next year. You're going to see a lot of, better or for worse. You're going to see a lot of edgeless paddles, and you're going to see a lot of Kevlar face paddles.
Yeah. Edgeless paddles, I'm still I'm still not sure. They have gotten a lot better, but that extra edge guard, there's so many benefits of it. First of all, it kind of protects your paddle, and then the additional added weight that it provides for swing weight and for twist weight to make the paddles more stable and more usable is just better. And I don't know, it's just, I think the edge guard is still here to stay. At least they're not going away anytime soon, or at least I don't think they should, So yeah.
Yep. That, or they're going to have to just start doing something that adds significantly more weight inside of the paddle. But honestly, with how easy it becomes to crack the edges of certain edgeless paddles, I mean, the new Gearbox has definitely had the issue. The Infinity, I haven't seen significant amounts of damage to one, but like mine, when we just had a really small drop, it cracked decently. So I'm like, okay, I just think you are less stressed when you have the edge guard. Like, I'm not saying it needs to stay forever, but until there's a better solution, I generally think that's better than an edgeless paddle, unless your only goal is hand speed.
Yep. I agree.
Yep. So other things, we already talked about it. Experimentation of the core, don't need to go into that. I think prices, I don't know that they'll continue to drop. I just think you'll start seeing newer tech come down into the cheaper prices. Like, it'll probably start a little higher up, and then it will make its way down, kind of like thermoforming did.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think we've kind of reached, well, there's still a little bit of market experimentation on the price. I mean, we've seen $330 paddles. We've seen $270, like, that are more consumer facing, like the Gearbox, $250. And I think the premium paddles will still be around the $200 to like $250 range. I think you'll still get really good paddles between like $140 to the $180. And then I don't know. I don't think paddles will be getting that much more expensive. Like truly consumer facing ones that hit $300. Do you think we'll get there?
You really about to try and test Selkirk like this? You really want to push their button and see if they'll press the 400 range?
No, they wouldn't. I don't think they would.
Okay. Everyone has said that. To my knowledge, I'm not 100% positive about this.
Yeah.
But I think they were one of the first to pass 150. I think they were also one of the first to pass 200. And then they were also the first to pass 300. So,
but I mean, the 300 one isn't like, I wouldn't consider that a true, I don't know, consumer, like, mass market paddle. Because.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
I kind of think what Labs has become is it has become we can release a consumer facing product for a lot more money, but since it's kind of in this little club, we can charge more money for it. Like, yes, they do improve it and they change it for the next year, but like the tech that has been in recent Labs paddles, it's not like, oh my gosh, this is revolutionary. Like, it just 006 was just a thermoformed paddle. 005 was kind of a thicker power air that was a little bit worse because it was like all fiberglass. I don't know. It kind of feels like Labs is not what it once was.
It's true. I mean, it is for experimentation, and I can say that some of it, I mean, a lot of it has been flops, but some of it has worked only because, I have some insider knowledge of what's to come. But some of it, I'm like, oh, this is going to be nice. Like, I won't get into it. We'll save that for next year. But, and some of it comes from the labs, like some of the tech and stuff that they're putting into some of their new stuff that I've been prototyping and helping test out. I was like, okay, like, you're taking some of this feedback seriously, and you get a lot of feedback from a lot of people, and they do take that data and they do work with it a bit, because the one that they recently sent to me, I've actually been playing with it a lot, and it's been quite enjoyable. I'm not gonna lie to you.
All right, well, that's good to hear. Other thing that I think is going to come, well, we already know it is going to come, is the replaceable raw carbon fiber face sheets. I know Reload is working on that.
I need to see this. I mean, you've had such high praise for it. I am still skeptical, and I just need to see it for myself. I need to play with it.
It's not going to be too much longer. It will be. It's not too much longer, and I think I'll even hoping to have a prototype or not prototype, but basically finalized version somewhat soon. So I'm eager to mess with this and put it through its paces and see, like, you know, if I put it through the ringer for a couple weeks, like how does it hold up? But that's the type of stuff that I'm like excited to see the industry move towards that. Like, we're seeing some of these different cores, like with the Gearbox. There's some other ones coming out that we won't talk about for now. Even though it flopped, I give Adidas props for trying something different with the weighted system. I think that was,
we'll give them
it was a
props
good
for that,
try.
for sure.
It just didn't work out. So like that, replaceable face sheets, you know, just stuff like that. It's good to see the industry like trying to move up instead of like just stagnating.
Yeah, I think 2024 will be a very interesting year for paddles. We might see something else like just completely different. You know what I'd love to see with, you know, these new cores and with the reload with the replaceable sheets? I would like somebody to revisit that concept that we saw, was it late last year, of like the dual-sided paddle. Like one side was, you know, fiberglass and the other side was like raw carbon fiber to give you, you know, a different like feel or performance depending on the side that you use. Kind of like how table tennis paddles like have, you know, different sides of rubbers depending on their backhand, their forehand. I think that could now be feasible and viable with, you know, kind of like the tech that we have or that is developing. What do you think about that?
It'd be interesting to see. I'm still not convinced it would be like a mainstream thing, but maybe if someone finally just does it well, like One Shot and Pro XR did it, and both of those flopped really hard because they just didn't feel that different. But I think if someone could do it in a way, it could be kind of interesting. I'm still a little skeptical, but I don't know. It could be interesting to see if someone could figure out a way to do it better.
Okay. All right. So moving on from that. So our top picks of the year. Let's first start with most underrated paddle or paddles. So Chris, I know you have a pick here. What is it?
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Annalee Waters 12.7 millimeter. I know it came out, you know, a little over a month ago now, so it's not had a lot of time, but it's pretty much gotten ignored because Paddle Tech has just, like, they took so long to do anything. People lost faith in the brand. It also doesn't help that the paddle is on the more expensive side at $230. But every time I've used this, dude, I'm like really impressed with it. It's not like Gearbox levels of insane. It's not like the most innovative thing, but I think it combines like a lot of interesting things. So
yeah, it checks all the boxes.
It's a standard shape.
Well.
Yeah, standard shape. The spin is really good. It's just under 2,100 RPM. And, like, when I hit it, it feels like I get a ton of spin. Like, every single person I have played against or drilled against with it, they every single time comment on how hard the ball dips. So I thought that was interesting. And for its weight and size, it just packs a significant punch. Swing weight is like 105. It hits very hard. It's very fast in the hand. It's very loud. And you can add lead to it. Like I added, like, you know, since it's so light, I added just strips all across the side. Hits even harder now, still fast in the hand. Like, I think it's a paddle that people are going to sleep on because of the price and the Paddle Tech, you know, being what they are. But I think it has a very good place in the market. If it had a longer handle, I would consider using it.
Oh, really? Wow. That's high praise coming from you. But honestly, Paddle Tech has surprised us in their last two releases. Like, what was it, the latest Wave Pro version? Was it version 3, right? Like, yeah, I think that surprised us at how well that it played and it performed. And now the Annalee Waters signature paddle is right up there. I just feel like Paddle Tech would be in a different place had they released some of those versions or some of those paddles earlier on in the year. You know, so they still got some catching up to do, but it's looking bright for them with this release of the Annalee Waters paddle and with their new Waves version 3.
Add shapes, just add like an elongated. Dude, man, if they did a hybrid shape, like, oh my gosh, like the potential is so high. I know it's supposed to be Annalee's signature paddle, but just come out with another version that gives like longer handle or something, like a 5.5-inch handle. I really think that paddle could be pretty solid. I'm gonna keep messing with it because I think it's got a lot of potential.
What is your current paddle right now? Is it still the Gearbox?
Gearbox and the double black diamond is pretty much. I mean, like since I finished all my tournaments, I have basically only been hitting other paddles. Like I have not played any games with the paddles that I would want to play with. But yeah, Gearbox, Double Black Diamond, like both of them basically.
Okay, gotcha. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, my most underrated paddles of the year. First, we'll go over an old one, but a good one. Well, maybe not too old, but is the Black Diamond. I know 6-0. Everybody talks about the Double Black Diamond now. Everybody talks about the Ruby, but I revisited the Black Diamond when I was doing my big paddle, kind of comparison video, and I really like the Black Diamond, even in the new form, because in the original Black Diamond that I had, it hit really hard. It was really powerful. It was in my top 10. Probably still would be in my top 10. And then I heard that they changed it, so I was skeptical about it. And then after I picked it up and I started playing with it, I was like, oh wow, I really like this paddle a lot more. It's a little bit more controllable. I think it's probably 6-0's most spin friendly, or I think has the highest spin potential of all their paddles. Maybe just eking out the Ruby, but I would totally choose the Black Diamond over all of the other 6-0 paddles right now that I've had more time with it. So that's one. The Thrive Threat is a good one. It's good twist weight. It has a little bit of a shorter handle, but it's just solid overall all around paddle. I think it has great feel, soft touch if you're looking for a very control oriented paddle. And then one that you might think me crazy, that's a little underrated, is actually the Head Gravity.
I think that one is accurately rated well. I'm going to need you to expand on that one, because there's not a single person I've ever heard say, man, the gravity.
It's just a good control paddle. That's really all that it is. I think it looks awesome, and I think it has a crazy sweet spot. It's just the shape of the paddle combined with the looks and the soft touch. All right, so I brought it to mess with earlier in this year. I went to Austin, Texas, and this is why I think it's underrated, because there's a few times, and this is when thermoforming was all the rage. People were hitting me with Double Black Diamonds and legacies and whatnot, and I was like, you know what, whatever. I'm gonna pull out this Gravity, and I'm hitting drops and resets that I'm surprised. I'm like, oh crap, that went over, and then it'd be 2 O's. It'd be oh my gosh, that went over. Oh my gosh, that dipped down like that, and then I'm getting up to the kitchen line. I mean, yeah, it lacks power, but it's kind of the same feeling I got when you and I first tested the Kitchen Pro. Remember the Kitchen Pro?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, everything just kind of goes in. Anyways, those are just.
Did you recently
what?
Quit working at Selkirk? Did you start working at Head or something?
No.
Head Gravity. I'm dumbfounded by this pick.
Look, you said underrated paddles, and that's the one that came to my mind. So.
I mean, hey, it's your pick. I'll let you have it. But yeah, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. All right, for sure.
Let's flip the script a bit. Overhyped paddles, overrated paddles. What are your picks for that for this year?
It was kind of hard to think of. Well, okay, it wasn't hard to think of one, but I just couldn't think of many. But the biggest one for me was the Perseus.
You don't like it?
I think it's a fine paddle, and it has a slightly lower swing weight for an elongated thermo, but it was a combination of things. I think it was the hype of Ben using it and everyone building up to it, the press launch thing they did, which I do think that was cool. I think it was kind of cool to go there and experience something like that. But it just, at $250, the spin was underwhelming out of the box. It still felt like they had kind of that classic Yola grit consistency issue, which I'll give them a little bit of credit. That's kind of an issue across the entire industry. That could be a whole video on itself. But it just was so underwhelming to me when I got it relative to what was on the market. And I just think at the price and everything, it was kind of yeah, you guys needed to do better. And it's funny, I haven't gotten to cut any open yet, but I've definitely seen a few Perseuses that were core crushed. You're pressing on it, it's crunching.
I've been hearing a lot about that, honestly.
Yeah. So like it was very funny to me that YOLO was kind of like making fun of everyone, kind of like when Gearbox with the new Pro was making fun of everyone for a QC, and like YOLO was like, yeah, like, you know, these guys are like, their cores are bad, and like ours probably aren't going to do that. And I'm like, well, yeah, it looks like yours are doing it too.
Yeah, nobody is, you know, like
nobody's
immune.
safe.
Yeah, nobody's safe.
Yeah.
Nobody's immune to like core crushing if you use a honeycomb, you know, polypropylene core. Like it's gonna happen. Even if you use other materials too, it can still happen. Like we just don't know. Like, but it's more often to happen if you use just regular honeycomb PPP. Like it's gonna happen eventually. Someone can do it. Like you'll always find somebody who can do it.
Yeah, right. So yeah, Perseus was my pick. That was. Yeah.
Let's see. My pick for somewhat overrated paddles for this year, it's somewhat in the same boat, is the Ronbus Nova.
That's an interesting one.
Like I think it's a fine paddle, right? I don't know. Can you really call it thermoforming anymore? Because I mean, so I didn't do a video on it or a video review on it. It just didn't interest me that much. But I know you did some. I know John Q did some, and I watched it and I looked at the images of, you know, how they got the edge guard, how they kind of like drill holes. There's like this matrix, you know, so it's still technically unibody, but there's like kind of like cutouts, like small cutouts to like let the core kind of, I guess, expand a little bit. There's more leeway so that it doesn't crush, right? And I don't know, I just felt like it made the paddle heavy, and it just wasn't anything like special anymore, right? It's like, what I'm trying to say is, I don't know that I would choose the Nova over the regular like R116 or R316 is what I'm trying to say. Right? Why would I pay more for it when they're both, to me, control centric paddles? They both get great spin. I don't know, maybe according to your tests, I think the R116 still is pretty up there. It might even...
Yeah, it was pretty up there.
Yeah, so it's like, why would I choose the Nova? Why would I pay more for it? You know, maybe I get a little bit more power, but it's like, to me, it's just not worth it. That's why I think it was like a little overrated. I still think it's a fine paddle, but that's my pick.
I think that's fair. Did you ever get to hit the updated R1 Nova? It kind of annoys me that they did this because I feel like it probably changes my review, but they did some stuff to make it a little bit more powerful, and then the R3 was, which I didn't get to hit much, is supposed to be more powerful overall, but I did bring out the R1 Nova, the newer one, recently when I was working on some of my paddle award stuff. I was like, okay, I should just like hit some of these paddles and make sure. And I did think it was better than what I remembered the original Nova being. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit more all court, had a little bit more power. It's pretty solid overall. But I can definitely see what you're saying because it wasn't anything blow away. Like its main thing was like, hey, we've fixed core crushing. And it's like, okay, well, you said that with the Pulsar, and like people have definitely been able to break those, maybe less, but those still broke. Sounds like there still haven't been any of the Nova, but yeah, it was just like, I guess it was interesting concept, but it didn't lead to a huge performance change. It was more fixing something that should have never been a problem to begin with.
Right, exactly. No, I totally agree with you. And they did send me an updated one. I haven't got to hit it like as much or enough, but I did get a decent amount of time with the R3 Nova, and I think if I went with the Nova series, I would go with the R3 shape. It's it has a little bit higher swing weight, so I can get a little bit more power and plow through with that one. So I'll have to revisit the newer R1 Nova. I do have it, but like basically you would choose the Nova if you wanted just a tad bit, in my opinion still, if you just wanted a tad bit more power and you didn't want, I guess, some core crushing issues or potential like durability issues. But also at the same time, if you get the R116 or a Gen 1 raw carbon fiber, like it's less likely that you'll also have core crushing issues, you know? So it's that's why I'm like, why would I choose it? Right? Yeah. So that's just like my take on it.
I think that's a really interesting pick. That's like, if I was like rating our picks, I kind of like yours is like a more interesting take than mine. I feel like mine is kind of feels more predictable. That was kind of interesting.
Okay, well there you go. Well, I don't have any other overhyped paddles. I do agree with you on the Perseus a little bit, but Yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now that I would choose for like overhyped. If you guys out there that are listening have some paddles that you think are way overhyped, it could just be performance, it could be price per performance. Let us know down in the comments below. I there's a part of me that feels like some people will say the Ruby, like they might put the Ruby down in there.
I mean, yeah, like. I think the only reason I wouldn't put it in that category is because I did like it and would consider using it, but at least based on some of the hype it generated initially, it's like borderline where I'm like, I just don't know if the hype was warranted. Yeah. That'd be like almost a runner-up for me. It's like whatever below runner-up would be.
I see. Interestingly enough, when I went to go play pickleball here, some people came up to me. They're like, "Oh man, love the pod, love the reviews," but they all ask me. I got this multiple times. People are like, "When is the Willinator shape coming out? That's what I need. I need that elongated 6-0 paddle." I'm like, "Dude, your guess is as good as mine." He's like, "Dude, you have a shape named after you." I'm like, "Bro, whoa, hold up there. That's still up for debate." Bodie has something to say about that. Have you heard that? You know
what? Dale and I beat Bodie in a game, so I think Bodie's say on the shape might not matter anymore. Now that I've Dale and I have dethroned Bodie, maybe it's gonna be like the Chrisinator or something. I'm gonna rename it. It doesn't roll off the same as Willinator.
Yeah. We'll see. All right.
But yeah, so we wanted to do more picks, guys. We actually wanted to go through every category, but the only reason we couldn't do this is because my Paddle Awards video is not done yet. There was some stuff this year that delayed me from getting it done as soon as I wanted to, so it's probably going to happen closer to the end of the year, and I don't want to spoil it because we're going a little all out on this video this year. Yeah. We went pretty extra. I think the winners of this year will be happy. We'll just say there were more stakes this year. There was a little bit more stakes. So
I can't wait for this.
Just know that if you won anything this year, you might be a little happy about it. So
yes,
we'll get to that. But I'm excited to do that video. I think it's it'll be a fun tradition to do every year.
We're all waiting with bated breath. It'll be nice. It'll be a Christmas present for all of us when we open up. I'm sure you're gonna release it before Christmas, but it's like pop it open.
Oh, I don't know. It's gonna be close.
It's gonna be close. Okay. There you go.
It might even be after Christmas because people will understand later, but there was one component that just took a long time to acquire, and that is kind of what pushed this whole thing back.
Okay.
Next year, I think I'll be more on top of it. Like I think if I just planned a little bit better. So just know, companies next year, if you want to even be in the running for next year, if you release a paddle in December, there's like almost no way. Like your cutoff is going to be like November.
Mm-hmm.
November 1st. Just keep that in mind for next year.
Thanksgiving happens, so there you go.
Holidays, man. Yes. All right. We've made it to the kitchen. Will, this is a long episode. These State of the Paddle episodes always go really long.
Yeah.
So apologies if you guys don't like long episodes, but we had a lot we wanted to say. Yeah. But you've made it to the kitchen. If this was like a real game, this is kind of one of those ones where you had to hit like 5 fist shot drops, like 10 transition balls, and then you got to the kitchen and they lobbed you back and you had to hit a bunch of drops to get back. Like, This is a big back and forth dance to get to the kitchen today.
Yeah. Good job for making it over here. You guys are elite, 5-0 plus.
Yeah. You guys are the real ones. But anyways, it's nothing too big, but I just had some interesting thoughts I wanted to talk about. So I had read the book Atomic Habits, which I should have read like long time ago. It's like a staple.
By James Clear.
Yeah, it is definitely a good book. It's very easy read. I've never been a big reader. I'm trying to be more this year, but I listened to the audiobook and I thought it was very easy to digest, unlike a lot of books. Highly recommend, especially because I think it can relate to a lot of pickleball things. But anyways, one of the things that he talks about in that book is getting 1% better every day. And I felt like this really resonated with me because you can actively choose in like any aspect of your life to like try and improve something. It like he talks about, at least I believe it was in his book. It could have been something else I heard it, but like, 10 10 push-ups a day would be better than 0 push-ups a day. Walking 5 minutes is better than walking 0 minutes. Like, making progress is better than making no progress. And so I've started to try and apply this to a lot of different things. And like recently, one of those things for me was working out more. I think a handful or number of people know I've been working with Catherine's trainer, Connor Derrickson from CDP Performance or Connor Derrickson. I'll link his website down below. But he's been great. So I've been getting some gym routine stuff from him, going twice a week. I started working on my diet more, making sure I was getting a lot more protein than I was before, which has actually made a big difference in how I feel day to day. And then also my sleep, because my sleep's been really bad. And one of the things I just started doing this, dude, it makes a massive difference. If any of you fall into this category, please try it. So I'm pretty sure I have sleep apnea. I snore really badly.
It's really bad.
Yeah, like I have. Yeah.
Guys,
it is.
Wait,
have you and I ever even had to share a room before?
No, we haven't, but that doesn't mean I still can't hear it.
Do you actually hear it through the walls?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's so bad.
Yeah, you could hear it through the walls, dude. I just don't say anything. It's like...
okay, but does it wake you up?
No, but it's noticeable.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
But I couldn't only imagine. I'm like, man, if I was sleeping in the same room as Chris, like, man, this would kind of suck. I need to go to sleep early. I need to go sleep first. And doesn't your wife does that? She goes to sleep before you, right?
Yes.
To make
she
sure
has to go to sleep before me. Otherwise, she can't go to bed.
Exactly. See, there you go. That's how you know how bad it is.
That's fine. Well, the first time ever, side tangent, I'll be quick. The first time I ever realized how bad it was, this was before I was married. I went on a video trip to do a job with a friend, and we had to share the same room, and I'm being woken up in the middle of the night by pillows hitting me. Like, we're across the room. My friend is literally throwing pillows at me, and I wake up and I'm like, what? I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, Chris,
he's lobbing
shut
pillows
up.
at you.
He's like, you are snoring so bad. And I was like, I didn't even know I snored, but like, I was married at this point. So I did know that I snore, but I didn't know it was this bad. And so it was kind of like that confirmation of like, oh, wow, this is enough to annoy other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to lie, I am always a little subconscious when I go on trips with people. Like if I have to share a room, or even this last San Clemente trip, I was in the living room and the walls are very thin. And I was like, man, everyone in this house is probably going to hear me snore. And I'm like, I'm sorry. But this is where the nasal strips come in. So anyways, I probably need a sleep apnea test. And I know I need to do this. I'm working on it. Okay. I tried these nose strips, and I've also tried taping my mouth shut because those are things that are supposed to help. Okay, get this. First of all, I've always had a hard time breathing out of my nose. It switches which one I can breathe through. Try the nose strips. It was like I was taking in twice the amount of air, and I have now slept 2 nights with taping my mouth shut and using the nasal strip, and my watch said my deep sleep has more than doubled. It went from like 40 minutes to 120, and I'm waking up feeling way better. So I was like, these nasal strips were like one of those 1% hacks that I was like, wow, this actually has made a huge difference in like how I feel.
Sick. Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah. So you guys might start seeing me wear these more. Honestly, I might start wearing them to the court. They look kind of stupid. Like it's literally just something that sits on your nose.
You're going to wear them when you're not sleeping?
Well, yes, because I can breathe so much better. I'm sure it would help on the pickleball court.
Okay. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Dude, Chris instantly goes from 3.5 to 4.0. Wait, who am I kidding?
Do it.
No, you're not.
I'm
just kidding.
So that is one of the things. But speaking more specifically to pickleball, like I think the sleep, diet, and gym has genuinely made a huge difference in my stress levels, my day-to-day work, and just like even performance on court. So I know it's not a sexy thing that any pickleball player wants to do. They all just want to play the game. But I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like if you focus on your diet, gym, and all these other things a little bit, like I will not change. I'm not going to go back, basically, because I'm seeing how big of a difference it makes in my life. But anyways,
awesome.
applying the 1% thing.
Happy for you, bro. No, I get that because, I mean, I've been drilling a little bit more. I mean, this year has been like a massive improvement for me as well. And I did read that book. I think we talk about that book. I don't know if you probably heard about it beforehand, but I know I did recommend it to you. So yeah, if you haven't read it yet, definitely check that one out. But like applying it and staying consistent is I think, at least for me, that was the hardest thing for me from like 2021, 2022. I really didn't push out content. I was stressed, anxious, didn't sleep well. But this year, I've probably made more content than I've ever had. I've also drilled more than I've ever have with my buddy Kale. And I've been seeing like my progress grow up, or at the very least, I don't know, maybe not so much in tournament play, but like I have seen improvement, and people have been telling me, even like my buddy Kale has told me, and it's caught like some people's eyes. So like quick little tangent, I guess the drilling has paid off because in Oklahoma, we are starting like a kind of like a professional Oklahoma pickleball league, similar to how they do at the Orchard in Arizona, that Kyle plays on. They have different teams from the differing parts of town, and they play each other. We're trying to start one of those up. It's being kind of spearheaded by my friend Jenna Hessert. Shout outs to Jenna. She's an amazing player, amazing woman. She plays pro, but she called me and she's like, we're gonna have a small team. We're gonna pick 4, but she invited me to be on one of the teams to play. And I'm like, well, you want me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Let's go. I can barely win. I can barely win like tournaments out there, medal in some of these tournaments. But she asked me, I'm like, okay, shoot, count me in. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Let's go. No, that's great. Yeah. And I think honestly, applying the 1% thing to like your game is, it can, I'm telling you, it doesn't even have to be big, because you honestly want it to be small enough that you will consistently do it and have it compound. So for like my game, one thing I was doing this last week, just while I was testing the Ruby, is I know that my footwork needs to be improved. Like I want to be able to move more efficiently, move faster. And I would watch video of myself and I'm like, man, you just sit flat footed. So I literally just tried doing what James does, and I would just hop. Yes. Yeah, like still not nearly as much. It's funny. It felt like I was doing it so much, and then I'd watch it back and I'm like, wow, you're still at like a fourth of his split steps per second. Like this is kind of crazy. But even just a small thing like that you can be conscious of while you're playing, like, okay, I'm going to like split step a lot more and make sure my feet are active so that I'm like moving my feet, and it hopefully carries over to the rest of the game. Like it's a small thing that I think if you keep compounding them, like it turns into big gains down the road. And I think people overlook, you hear this all the time. People like overlook, what is it? They underestimate what they can do in like 10 years and they overestimate what they can do in a year. And I think I see this happen in all sorts of things. Like it doesn't have to be that big of a time frame, but like just keep adding small things, and over time you will see it add up and become a big thing.
Yeah, it's like, what do they call it? I think it's called the Pareto principle. It was like 20% of what you do, like there's like a subset of 20% of the things that you do equate to like 80% of the gains or success that you make. It's like the 80-20 rule. I can't quite remember how it goes, but yeah, basically,
no, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, small things lead to big results. As long as you stay consistent.
Yeah, and speaking of that, for my break in January, I've been kind of mapping out what it's going to look like. And first of all, I'll be going, instead of 2 days a week, I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week, just because I'll have the time to do it. But I'm going to try and drill 3 times a week or more on top of it, because I've kind of learned now that I can go to the gym and not have it nuke me so bad that I can't play pickleball. So I can kind of do both, which is good. But I'm going to focus on mostly just drilling in January. Like I will probably play some games, but I'm going to avoid it and just see what things I can really focus on and come back at the end of January being better at. So I'm actually really excited for this, because I felt like this whole year I never got a lot of pickleball time to like focus on my actual development. Like sometimes I did, but
yeah,
a whole month to just like, my only objective is to use the paddle I want, go play and drill. I'm very excited for that.
Heck yeah. Love that. Love it.
Yeah.
Wishing you the best for that. Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah.
You got anything
That's
else?
pretty much all I got. Hope you guys liked the little 1% thing. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I know it's long, but Will and I, we're just big talkers.
We're trying to give it to you guys before you don't hear from us for a whole entire month.
True. We're loading them up with a long episode so they can listen to it throughout that month of January with no episodes.
Some people came up to me and they're a little upset. They're like, there's no way like you're not doing something for a whole month. I'm like, yeah, you might not hear the podcast. I'll try to push out some videos. I'm sure Chris will have some scheduled, but yeah, you might not get the podcast. They're like, what? Like people are like,
yeah,
visibly upset. I'm sorry. We're sorry, guys.
Nope. No pod in January, guys. It's okay though. We'll come back. We'll come back bigger than ever. It's gonna be, it's gonna be big. But
like next year is gonna be amazing. Oh, also, quick side note. Last thing before we let you guys go. This Tuesday. Well, I guess I don't know. Hopefully this episode comes out today, or maybe comes out tomorrow at the latest. But Chris and I and a bunch of other YouTubers, we will be streaming the Arizona season championship at the Orchard on our YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. There's no real pickleball play or tournaments. So if you need your pickleball fix in, definitely check out the season finale at the Orchard. And go support them. They're doing great things out there.
For sure. Sweet. Well, good conversation, Will. Enjoy your Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. The next pod will be out after Christmas. And we'll catch you guys later.
See ya. Happy New Year's.